Hi everyone, my name is Dana Jamailbek and I'm the student of 10th grade of Profile School named after Al-Farabi. The theme of my research is history and modern usage of the term racism. I picked this theme mostly because the theme of racism nowadays is more urgent than ever for me and for the whole community, society. I also wanted to figure out the connection between the terms of race and racism, and to conclude the fact that this term racism is nothing more but a social construct. So in my research, I opened up the theme, the etymology and origin of the terms of race and racism, the theory of polycentrism and monocentrism, and also my own theory of origin of the term race, the etymology and origin of the terms ethnicity, anti-Semitism, chauvinism, and nation, the history side of racism, race and racism, modern racism. Do we need the race term nowadays, and how it will affect on us if not? You can see it on the slide that there is two definitions that I put up. The first one is about race from the Oxford Learner's Dictionary. The race is a group of people sharing the same culture, history, language, etc., and ethnic group. And the racism, by the definition of DW Media, is an ideology or framework consolidating this racial division and claiming the supremacy of one race over another. In plain meaning, in plain language, it means the idea of people being divided into different categories as the white race, the yellow race, the black race, the red race, and etc. Before, researchers tended to believe that the term race is a biological concept, biological term, but at the turn of 20th century, the civil rights leader and sociologist W.E.B. Du Bois was first to conclude that the race was not scientific, but a social, social category, and that the whole disparities depend on social, not biological inequality. Then in 2016, the genetics from the USA, M. Udall, D. Roberts, and etc. in their work of taking race out of human genetics declared that the use of biological concept of race in human genetic research is problematic at best and harmful at worst. So which one came first, racism or race? In my turn, in my own theory, as you can see it in the slide, I honestly believe that it was racism, not a word, but a concept, which came to us first. Only then the term race came, as well as the terms nation, ethnicity, chauvinism, anti-Semitism, nativism, xenophobia, and etc. The term race in the modern meaning is straightly connected with the terms of nation and ethnicity, as they both are more social than biological. Nation is a large body of people united by common descent, inhabiting a particular country or territory, and the ethnicity is a fact of state of belonging to a social group that has a common national or cultural traditions. So again, it's not a biological connection of the whole country, city, or group, but cultural and territorial, since people are sharing both of these parameters. The proof of my theory I saw in the Jack Derrida's speech in his conference at the Californian University in 203rd. He said that we owe to the racist outlook with the concept of race. Regularly, we think that the racism is a term which was created and formed based on the term of race, he said. At the beginning, you learn what race is, and racism is a way of dealing with race, thus to invent or to support the hierarchy. But in fact, it's quite the opposite. We know that the concept of race has no scientific or philosophical content. Therefore, it is racism which produced or consumes the concept of race. It was his words, and it might seem strange somehow, but the word race, I guess, definitely would come first. But the concept, it was racism. So you could actually see that it was racism, then race and ethnicity, nation, and only then came chauvinism and anti-Semitism and xenophobia and etc. So by my theory, I claim that the chauvinism, anti-Semitism, nativism, xenophobia, and etc. are all forms of racism. So what is anti-Semitism? Anti-Semitism is a discrimination against Jews as a religious or racial group. It has a really long history, but it was but it had the most urge in the 20th century, when the idea of the world dividing into race categories was almost everywhere. Hitler and the National Socialist Nazis also believed in that, and they believed that the races were in competition with each other. According to the Nazis, Jews were weak, dangerous, and inferior race that did not belong in Germany. So it was later when concentration camps for Jewish people were invented, and when the millions of Jewish people, innocent people, died because of the hate. The idea was racist and it was terrifying. But the truth is that Jewish people were never a race. They were an ethnicity or nationality, if you like to say it in that way, which again leads us to a connection between the race, nation, and ethnicity. And during the time I described earlier, there was not only anti-Semitism, but also discrimination based on skin color, discrimination against people of color. The history of slavery starts in 1690s when white people enslaved from 6 to 7 million people to the New World. And it was almost 170 years of slavery in the United States, when Black people not only had no rights, but also was discriminated in every possible way. In the late 1860s, the new elected USA President Abraham Lincoln started to fight against the racism and the slavery. On January 1st, 1863, that he made it official that enslaved people within any state or a designated part of a state in rebellion shall be then transformed and forever free, he said. Though there was still a lot of racism and discrimination during the 19th century, 20th century, and even the 21st century, it was the beginning of the end of centuries of slavery. Nowadays, there is still no end of the discrimination, not only over Black people, but also other race, even Jewish people, Chinese people, Asian people, and I will not say much about the Black Lives Matter and Stop AAPI hate movements, but it came with a new wave of protests during the pandemic, when the level of hatred, hatred level of racism and discrimination has increased. The death of George Floyd, this 46 years old African-American man, became a catalyst of the Black Lives Matter movement, which was created in 2013, and the hate in Twitter and other social medias, the killing of innocent people with Asian ancestry was a catalyst for starting the Stop AAPI Asian Hate in 2020. If we are talking about our country, there is not a really high amount of information about racism, mostly because people do not see the racism. But it is here, not everywhere, but in the places where words ores, mambet, narrow-eyed are used. I did a survey for my research, where I also included the question about racism in Kazakhstan. The answers were different. Some people answered that they always hear jokes with using such words as nigga, ores, mambet. Some wrote that about bullying those who have darker skin, and that they, in their own skin, went through the bullying. And others answered that there is intolerance towards people of other nation and ethnicity, especially for Chinese people. And it's not even all the answers. So I want to conclude that race is indeed a social construct which was created to make us people really to make the limits between us. But it was, what if we actually will drop the term race? Will be the heritage of centuries or the cultural heritage lost forever? I do not think it will. I definitely don't think it will. We already passed through the time when you could lose the heritage of the whole culture just by getting rid of the term. And I believe that we can just replace it with another term that does not bear racism in the whole meaning. As I do not think that using the term race could lead us to something, it does not mean I refuse the terms of nation and ethnicity either. They, even being social constructs as well, never harmed anyone as much as the term race did. So the only thing I want to say that there is the only one race, human race in our world, and we should be united. We should not fight. We should not have the war. And we just should be free and really connected with each other. Thank you for your attention.